Anyways, UConn's playing again. Whenever you're seeing this, in hockey and basketball, it's a big night for those guys. So even if you hate them, I mean, go give those games a watch. Yeah, guys, but we have probably the most exciting defensive position to go through. That's linebacker. There's some freaks. Okay, no Diddy, but there are some freaks at this position this year, guys. It's going to be a fun one to get through. We have 10. It's not the deepest class, I'll just tell you that right now. But yeah, let's get to our linebackers. And with that, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Fun Develop. Please like and subscribe. Hope you guys are ready for this 2026 NFL Draft inside linebacker prospect rankings. I am very, very specific on my linebackers. I want these guys to be able to play the position. If you're one of those people that's like, oh, Armo Reese is a linebacker, because he's not. He's a freaking edge rusher. We'll be probably looking at the edge rushers on Saturday. I don't know. It's going to be probably unlikely I'll be able to get it out by then. Again, I'm definitely behind on this. But, again, safety should be coming out by Friday if I had to guess. Again, I have a little bit of time here. But, again, it's not. It's a little bit of a tough cycle here. I'm going to try to crank these out. We should, again, we're looking towards Easter, and, again, a little bit after, again, by the draft, we'll obviously have all the prospect rankings out, but, again, it's a lot of time putting into these guys, and, again, I got to make sure we get through these guys. With that said, though, if you watch the offensive line video, that was an absolute movie, so I'm trying to make this, again, as short as possible. With that said, though, as always, we will be going through our honorable mentions, and I'm going to give you guys an asterisk here for linebacker. This is a very, I wouldn't say weak class, but there's a true top 9 guys, I think. Again, Arian Carter before he decided to go back. But there were really 9 guys for me at linebacker that I really, again, consider to be legit guys. And when I say legit, there's obviously a very, this position for sure, there's a range of what that really means, but again, kind of falls off a cliff after that. So these 3 guys, well, I think they're capable players. None of these 3 I really see, honestly, is, again, the guys that could be starting next year. And if they are, it's probably for not a great reason. Nonetheless, Bryce Bocher is a very fun player to look at out of Oregon. He is a guy that I think is capable of actually playing safety in some situations because of the fact that he's actually pretty capable in coverage. But if you put him in a man-to-man situation, he is a waste of space. There's going to be a couple other guys we get to where that's a similar issue. But you look at him, his tackling is a little bit inconsistent. I think that's the biggest thing I can say on him. I will say last year a lot of that was shored up. But again, 2023 he played mostly at safety and again didn't technically start. But he struggled a lot in man coverage that year. 2024 obviously Tillman Gabriel, all that going on there. Really, you look at that game against Ohio State, I think that tells you guys a lot. His coverage, again, even in zone where he's been pretty solid in his career, was a big issue in that game. And again, you look at his other games. I think I watched 2 other games from that season. Also a little bit of a big issue in that one as well. He's not, again, like I said, he's not a bad player, but I think what separates him from like really, I say, being a starter is because there's just some situations where you can't have him on the field for, because again, it will result in a negative outcome for your defense. Again, it's kind of a schematic nightmare. I like him a lot because I think he does have a capability to be a solid player at some point, but right now, in terms of the limitations he has, it's really hard for me to think of him as a guy I can project as a starter, at least in year 1, which I think a lot of teams, again, if they think that he's going to need to play, he's a guy that I think they could definitely develop a little bit, but there's definitely a ceiling to this too with Bryce. But he's definitely a fun guy to look at. All right, now Tareen York. There we go. Now, this is a guy that I find really intriguing because of the fact that he never really had a good season at A&M, if I'm being honest. He's always been a solid blitzer. He's always been able to funnel his way through and make tackles. But he's always been a minus big time in coverage. Not something that you look at as, again, like glaring on tape. Again, it takes a little bit to look at. But the numbers support it. And if you watch him, like, again, just his whole overall process and his reading of the quarterback is just not there. And that's just a big issue for me. On top of the fact that his tackling, again, has never really been very consistent. He's never been a high-impact player. I understand the fact that he does make plays beyond the line of scrimmage, which is a big plus with him. That's really the only thing that I think that I can really, again, conceptually understand about why some people think he is, again, a top 5 guy in this class in some people's cases. But for me, it's just he doesn't do enough on tape to really warrant anything higher, on top of the fact that his physical makeup really isn't that special either. But he is a pretty solid player, and I think there is definitely a point in his career where he could be a starter, but that just doesn't really seem like, at least for me right now, a ceiling for him. And then we finish out with Aiden Fisher. Again, like I said, I would have liked to go with more of these guys, but again, most years, again, I think we're lucky this year. We have 9 guys to go through here at linebacker because, again, it usually tops off below that. For Aiden Fisher, his first years at JMU, or really his sophomore year at JMU, was very, very impressive. He was, honestly, I think definitely the best defender in the Sun Belt that season. He had a extraordinarily good year. The past years at Indiana, I think it's been telling on terms of what he is going to be in the NFL, and that is not a guy you really look at to be a 3-down linebacker, but I will say his ability to consistently read off of kind of what the offensive line is doing is something that I think is a very advanced for him. And you look at him last year, despite his, I think, overall his season not being as productive, I think is probably the best word, as 2024, he did show growth in that department. Not that it already wasn't, again, a big plus with him. Again, his ability to read what the offensive line was doing and kind of key off of that and make plays, I think is something that, again, a lot of other guys, even in the top of this class, just really don't possess. Despite the fact, again, there's definitely, again, physical limitations with him, which, again, this is a very athletic linebacker class. I'm not going to lie to you guys there. So it's going to be hard for these dudes, but on that level, those are my 3 honorable mentions. None of those guys, like I said, I think are really going to be starters in the NFL. And there will be one guy that really, at least is a rookie. And there will be a guy, I think, like, maybe the last guy I'm covering, who I don't see as a starter. But with that said, let's get into our top 10.
Nobody else is going to be motivated to practice hard. So, my job and everybody else in my room is to, set the tone every day.
And we start off our top 10, not getting ranked, we'll do that at the end. We have Kayshaun Elliott out of Arizona State. He is a really cool guy to look at. The biggest thing for that is because he wasn't really much of a cover guy at New Mexico State really at all. But honestly, guys, last year, despite that not really being a big part of his game, if you look at those Arizona State games, especially early in the season with that Mississippi State game, again, especially, he was asked to do a lot in coverage. I mean, there were definitely some big injuries in that secondary for Arizona State, but for a team going into the season that actually had pretty damn high expectations, he's the guy that stepped up big time for them when they needed him because of the fact that, again, that defense in a lot of ways was banged up. I will say his kind of transformation throughout the season was definitely more to, again, a kind of a conventional role for his play style, which is I'm going to blitz, I'm gonna read off plays and kind of, again, not really care about what's going on behind me. But kind of just showing that versatility for me, I think, was a very big step forward for him after a season in 2024 at Arizona State where he really had a very limited role in what he was, again, could really do because of the fact that I don't think they really could, again, I wouldn't say trusted him, but he wasn't completely comfortable in that Arizona State defense after getting a sophomore season in New Mexico State where he completely broke out and showed to be, again, at least top 15 linebacker in the entire country. With that said, though, tremendous year last year for Kayshaun being on, like, I don't know what we're going to say, like the 7th or 8th best defense in the Big 12. It's kind of hard to really, again, push past that. But, again, major game against Texas Tech early in the year as well. So keep that in mind. He was a big-time player for that Arizona defense, obviously, Arizona State. Now we look at him as a prospect. Again, we look at these traits. I want to give you guys a crash course on this, but we'll look at this kind of a little bit, again, as we go through here. But I'm going to say first, guys, tackling, I'm pretty, again, against not being technical with it because of the fact that if you're a linebacker and you can't tackle, unless you're just, again, basically a safety, I mean, like, even then, like, you got to be able to tackle a freaking linebacker. Like, what else am I supposed to say? So that was definitely a big trait for me. At the same time, again, none of these guys are bad tacklers, so it's kind of hard for me to be like, you should be at least here. And if you're, like, down here, like, what? I mean, maybe we'll get later when I again, really get deep into this group. That probably, like, I don't know, my bottom, we'll say, like, 5 guys that could have an issue with that. And usually it's definitely the separation point. But at the same time, guys, Kayshaun Elliott can tackle. What else do you want to tell? I mean, there's definitely some technical flaws there. He doesn't always wrap up, but I don't really care. His football IQ is definitely above average. I don't think it's something that'll completely change his game. The reason I say it's really good is because he makes a lot of plays off of it. He can read the quarterback exceptionally well at times. It's just, again, it's not consistent. That's why it's there and not, I don't know, special. His man coverage, consistency, and versatility are definitely a limitation of his game. The reason I say the versatility is a little bit higher is because he can't hang with, honestly, a slot receiver if you really need him to. It's just the fact that he's very undisciplined with, again, his tails, and I think that the fact that his hip mobility is a little bit, not fluidity, but his mobility is a little bit on the lower side, definitely hurts some of that potential with his consistency. But again, that's really just what I saw last year. His zone coverage consistency is actually pretty good. They had a very defined role last year, and again, that's kind of like stuff that goes over your head and kind of happens. But naturally, he actually fits in the lanes, which I think is really interesting. So that's why it's kind of there, because he is an effective player there. I will say it's nothing special though. He is not a versatile zone defender, which I think is actually kind of a blessing and a curse for a lot of guys. You look at a guy like Isaiah Simmons coming to the league; he was probably one of the more versatile zone linebackers coming out of the draft in the past like 15 years. But the fact that they really couldn't put him in the right spot really hurt his really development, on top of the fact that he was kind of a positionless player. We'll get to one of those guys in a little bit, probably near the end of this, but still, that's a big issue with him. His instincts are definitely really good. I mean, again, instincts are very easy to judge, even for a casual fan. Again, it's basically about what do you see them doing naturally? You kind of take away what, again, their assignment is and saying, what is their brain saying that's going to make a good play there? And that is something that, again, is very easy to tell with him. He kind of, again, just naturally knows where to go, which I think is very, again, good. Eye discipline is kind of just average. He gets beat once in a while. I don't really care. He fits the run at a very good level. It's just because of the fact, like I said, he knows where to be. And also, again, he is pretty good at kind of funneling a block to where he's still able to make a play on it, even if, you know, he's not in the greatest position, which, again, really just speaks to that. Contain, he doesn't do it a lot, but he does, again, a decent job at not getting blown up on. This isn't, again, something I stress too much, but it is a very important part of, again, a linebacker's role in a lot of ways. Playmaking, I think, is pretty solid. He makes plays, again, every game. This is a kind of, I won't say cut and dry, but, again, it kind of depends on your role, and for his role last year, wasn't a huge part of it, but, again, he can make plays. His speed is definitely below average. I don't think it's that much below average, again, where it's a glaring need, so that's why I just threw it at 68, but there's definitely a difference between him and, I don't know, Anthony Hill. He blitzes really well, guys. He just gets off and goes. Again, it's not really a true, like, burst, I'd say. It's more of he anticipates it really well. His strength, I think, is definitely, if you can, if you think about, like, conceiving things, that's definitely something that, again, you could see with him. Block shedding, I'll say, is an 82. I might have put this down a little bit more than I think about it, but it's definitely been an improvement over his career. Athleticism, it's a 70. It's not like, again, he's just not that great of an athlete, to be honest with you guys. And I gave him a 75 potential. I think he'll be a good player in the league. 74.4 overall grade, not the greatest, but, you know, it'll definitely work for him. TJ Edwards is my comparison. He's, again, not the greatest athlete, but, again, we talk about instincts and, again, really just fitting the run. That's part of the reason he's always on the field, because he's a really good, or I'm going to say elite, but teetering on an elite run fitter there. And, again, that's why TJ Edwards has been a starter for a while now. So, Kayshaun, see if that can happen to you. Now we're on to the unk out of Arkansas. That's Xavian Sorey. Is that tough? Xavian Sorey Jr. He's a really good player. Obviously, he wouldn't be in here. He didn't play his first 3 years at Georgia. I really think that sophomore season, or technically sophomore season, really told you a lot about his game. And that's the fact that he does not fit in Kirby Smart's defense. Whoa. Whoa. Yeah. He went to Arkansas, though, had two really solid seasons. I mean, he got embarrassed by Alabama, but we'll forget about this. He was one of the better linebackers in the SEC, especially last year, and he had several big games towards the end of last season that really boosted his draft stock. He's definitely a guy, we talked about aggression last year, something that kind of hindered his ability to consistently, you know, I won't say be on the field, but be a guy you could, like, play and trust. Again, his aggression definitely toned down towards the end of the season. I think it did limit some of his big plays because he definitely made more plays towards the beginning of the season, but at the same time, some of those highs and lows were more, again, balanced, which I think is a big part of why he was able to, again, kind of weather the storm with his discussion there. Anyways, though, you get Xavian as a prospect. He's always been a really good tackler, guys. It's a very sound mechanic of his. The only thing I'll say is that he is not a guy that in the open field that'll kind of be able to use that to his advantage. I think it kind of hurts him a little bit. But yeah, he's a really good tackler. IQ's always been lacking. Again, you could even go back to, I don't know, his freaking high school days. They said it on his freaking 24/7 sports page back in, like, before COVID. He has never had high football IQ. I don't think he'll ever will. But it's not part of the game that really hurts him too much, so I'll just give him a 65. Man coverage consistency is a 76. In the SEC, they picked on him a lot here, and he still made a lot of plays. I wouldn't say picked is right. They tested him a lot. I look at his versatility as well. Honestly, I don't know if he'd be the greatest on a slot receiver, but the fact that he's able to hang with guys because he has pretty decent speed, I think is something to definitely look at. In zone coverage, he is not a consistent player. Again, consistently not to getting picked on, but he does not really anticipate windows very well. Again, if you throw a ball over, so that, again, most, I won't say most, but good, or say that, aware linebackers in zone coverage would be able to pick off. Nonetheless, he's a guy that is very versatile because of the fact that you can drop him 10 yards back, and you can definitely trust him to get to that spot very easily. His instincts also are below average. It's not by that much, though. It's just the fact that they don't really show up on tape as an impactful part of his game. They are still good enough, though, that I think you can play with them. Again, not every linebacker's elite instincts. The best linebackers ever had the best instincts in the NFL. So again, there's definitely a hella high correlation with it. But again, statistically, there are definitely a lot of guys that don't really pass that. So don't be, again, too worried if you're a big Xavian fan. If you are, I guess. Eye discipline, I don't really care about for him because he's not going to really need to use it. But it's okay. He fits the run well. Again, positionally, I think that's because of the fact that he has gotten the experience in a lot of ways to really know what he's supposed to do there, which is huge. He doesn't contain. He will never be a guy that you see containing. If you have him as a whole linebacker, maybe, I guess, but he's gonna be more of a sub guy. So, like, who really cares? Jesus. Anyways, though, yeah, I gave 86 in the playmaking. He had a lot of plays last year. There's definitely a projectable Again, uptick with that as well. I understand the fact that he isn't the most aware zone linebacker, but he's still if he sees he can anticipate a play again in terms of downhill better than a lot of these other guys. Again, has probably one of the better speed guys here at this position in this year's draft. It definitely shows up on tape. I'd say it's more of a playable skill than actually measured, but yeah, he's a fast guy for this position. Blitzing, I'm not going to say anything crazy about. He does it once in a while, but it's definitely not a big part of his game. His strength it's definitely a limiting factor, I think, for it because of the fact that he plays very uncontrolled at times. The fact that he isn't able to again consistently kind of harness that with his ability to just make tackles off of his raw strength, which again I think is really the big thing there. He doesn't do a good job boxing. It's really just poor technique. Definitely a coachable skill though, so I'm not too concerned about that. But definitely needs to improve for him to be again a trusted linebacker in run defense. He's obviously a really good athlete. I mean, the measurables show that too, but yeah, he's got definitely high athleticism, and obviously his potential is decent, but his instincts definitely limit that a little bit. I gave him 74.6 grade. He's a fun guy to look at. It's just he's probably a little more on the raw side of a prospect. Oren Burks is my comparison. He's pretty quick, but he's never really been a true starter on a consistent basis, so that's what you get with him.
Recovered by the defense. First down, Alabama.
Watch the wrestling match with Tim Keenan at 300.
Next on tap is Alabama's lone linebacker in this year's draft. Of course, you had Jahad Campbell last year. Now you have Deontae Lawson. Again, Jahad Campbell get a chance to start this year after a very interesting rookie season. But for Deontae, he comes in at 6'2", 217. Kind of a peculiar weight. He's definitely undersized, not by too much, but again, basically every Alabama linebacker is, so I don't really care. But for Deontae, he didn't really play a lot I guess he played in 2022. Not really in a true role, though. Still technically played. But again, the past 3 seasons, he's been a consistent starter for them and really hasn't, again, I guess, in terms of production, he's definitely an uptick. But you haven't really seen a bad season, I'd say, out of him. It's been very consistent. I think last year definitely took a step up in terms of his actual role. But really the big things with him, you've really seen defined over the past 3 years, which is good in terms of a predictable mindset with him. Again, I will say his overall potential still is a little bit hindered by the fact that he hasn't completely improved on his weaknesses, but he's always been a solid linebacker for them. And again, there's a reason that again, Kalen DeBoer, again, has spoken of him pretty highly in certain situations. So that's what I have on him in terms of, again, his progression here at Bama. But for him as a prospect, his tackling is, again, I won't say a big issue for me, but it is definitely something that is, again, technically flawed. It has been really the past 2 years. I will say his sophomore season was probably the 1 year I'd say he was able to kind of show some sort of growth there, but again, it's kind of been the same the past 2 years. The reason I say that is because when he kind of, on his initial engagement with the guy, it's not really an effective, again, I wouldn't say an effective hit. But when he hits a guy, it's not, again, really in a fashion that's going to really, if we're talking about off of, again, being able to wrap and over, it's not, like, efficient. That's probably the best way to put it. Even effective. Again, it doesn't get the job done. That's probably the best way to put it. I want to be, like, more specific on that or technical, but let's be honest, guys. That's really all it is. Because, yes, he does get his arm under the wrap. Here. Again, he might get pushed back a little bit, but his arm here is so easy for, again, running back to just shake off. That's where I say it on that. His IQ, though, is exceptional. That is, again, you look at Alabama and what you need at linebacker, he gives you that to the extreme. He knows that defense and probably about 90% of the defenses in the country inside out. That is his strength. There's other things we'll get into, but that is what I think really separates him from some other guys. Man coverage, honestly, guys, he's just not a guy I look at as who's going to really have this as a big part of his game. He's kind of just average. But in zone, yes, he's a very consistent player. There might have been 2 snaps, I think, all season that I watched. I didn't watch every single one of his snaps, but I watched most of them, where he made the wrong, or maybe not the right, he made a mistake in zone coverage. It just doesn't happen. His versatility is also very, very good. Is he exactly an exceptionally fast guy at linebacker? Not really. But it is again, strength of his that he uses to, again, show his value. He's a exceptionally valued zone linebacker. That is why I think a lot of teams are going to need him, even though if they don't really want him. Yeah, there we go. Instincts are obviously really solid. Nothing crazy, though. I don't think it's like, it's hard. Again, it's very rare to find guys that have, again, elite instincts, to be honest with you guys. Again, I very rarely, not even notice that, but actually go on and project that there. His eye discipline, though, is very solid. Again, very good. and not getting fooled there, again, because he knows what's going on. Positioning, fitting the run, that's where I think he gets a little bit off. He does a lot of things with the defensive line to where he doesn't exactly play in a great spot. And while in the NFL, I think this is still a factor for him. Again, if the defensive coordinator gives him the green light, that is something I think that hurt him a little bit more than I think a lot of people would want to admit. His, I wouldn't say kind of method, but his kind of habit of trying to make sure everything else is right before he's in the right spot is, I think, something that kind of goes under the radar. It's not a big deal, but again, if he's put in a situation or in a defense where that's not something he will be asked to do, it's kind of hard to see him being a effective run defender all the time. Especially with his tackling. He contains actually really well. Again, it doesn't really bite on any fakes. That's really the biggest thing I noticed. He makes a lot of plays, obviously. Again, last year, I mean, he was making a lot. Doing a lot of things for that defense. Speed, he's got definitely above average speed. Really good. Is that the best way to describe it? No, but I put it here because he, again, plays faster than a lot of other players. And again, sideline is really good. He blitzes, again, that doesn't really do it a lot, but when he does, he usually gets the quarterback. His block shooting is absolutely horrific. That's what I'm talking about, him being an effective linebacker. Again, it's very crucial not only that he's in the right spot, but he does a really bad job at stacking and then getting off of the block. Again, it's really, he does take on blocks pretty well. It's just the fact that, again, when he stacks, it's not really an effective way for him to get off of it, which I think is a huge issue with him right now. That's probably really the limiting factor with him. And also his strength is definitely, playable strength is definitely lower, but again, it's always been an issue for him. He's obviously a really good athlete, though, and I think his potential is 76 just because of the fact that he's a run defender. It's kind of hard to see him being a guy that a lot of teams can trust. Shaq Thompson had a very similar comparison coming out of college, out of the fact that Shaq Thompson was an elite athlete coming out. Probably the big difference there, but I'll say a 75.3 overall grade for Deontae, a very smart linebacker.
Now the longest drive of the year for Bowling Green. Pine didn't see him. Jake Golday.
Now we're on to the Cincy, man. No, they're not playing tonight. They're playing the Red Sox tomorrow, though. Happy MLB opening day, guys. Jake Golday out of Cincinnati. He's 6'4", 240. He's a really just dense dude. He's not slow, though, if you thought that was the thing there. Only 2 years there at Cincinnati. I'm not going to lie. I don't really know why that. Was he a freaking wrestler? Why did Jake Golday only play 2 years in college? Let's see what the AI says. I have no idea. Oh, I'm a freaking brick. That makes more sense. Anyways, though, I only watched, really honestly, guys, last season with him. Again, I watched a little bit of 2024, but it really didn't tell much. He is a fun guy to watch take on blocks. That sounds super boring, but that's the best thing I can say about him because he just goes at it like, I'm going to knock your effing head off. And you might think of an offensive lineman. He's like, yeah, you might be 100 more pounds than me, but I don't care. I'm gonna still win this rep, and he did win a lot of those reps. And I just think that mindset that you can just notice off of him is really, really cool. On top of the fact that he is a very refined tackler when it comes to, again, lateral movements. So again, it's very hard to do at this, again, in college. And the fact that he was able to play at a consistent level, I think, was very, again, good. Was he the best linebacker in the Big 12? Probably not. You could argue Kayshaun Elliott had a better year, but he made a lot of plays for that Cincy defense and made them a lot more competitive in a lot of ways, too. For Jake, though, yeah, he's a really good tackler. Honestly, maybe not the best in this draft. We'll get to C.J. Allen, but he's a very, very clean tackler. Again, the biggest thing with it is the fact that he's able to push up into the running back and then bring him down. He's very good at winning the, I don't know how to put this. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. His initial reaction is going to knock you off your shoes. It's the best way to put it. IQ, not that important, to be honest with you guys with him. He is not that big of a deal. I will say, though, he's a very limited guy in terms of coverage. We'll talk about his zone in a little bit, but or really in a second. He's not a very versatile guy. I'm not going to compare too much to Kayshaun Elliott, but they have a very similar kind of baseline of what you're going to expect in that man coverage, and they both deliver at a pretty high level. With that said, though, in zone, he struggles a lot because of the fact that he just simply doesn't ever take into account what's going over his head. Basically, if you throw it in his direction, it's not going to get picked off, and if it does, as you guys saw in that highlight, it's probably because your quarterback's trash, Avery Johnson. Anyways, though, yeah, he is a very inconsistent guy in coverage. There are times in zone coverage. His instincts, though, aren't really lacking enough where I think that's a huge issue at the time, but he had a disastrous year last year in zone coverage. There's some versatility, though, with him because I think he can do it decent enough. Instincts, I gave a 73. I said it's kind of lacking, but it's not that big of a deal because he's still, again, against the run is a just vicious animal. I'm giving 77 for eye discipline. He rarely gets pulled out of a hole because of misdirection, but I will say there are some inside zone concepts that do catch him kind of in no man's land, but again, that's like only like 3 times a game, which you might think is a lot, but it's not too bad. He fits the run well, though. I think it's more to the pre-snap adjustments he's used to making, but in the post-snap, it's a little bit ambiguous. In terms of what we actually see with that. Quarterback containing 95, this is probably, again, it definitely is his best trait. You're not going to, if you're Lamar Jackson, there's about a 10% chance you're actually going to break outside the pocket with him. It's just not going to happen. His gaps, we're talking about like lanes, against scrambling quarterbacks, is just, it's lockdown. His speed, I'm saying with 79, I don't really care about playmaking. He's making plays, I think probably at an average rate. Speed, I said a 79. It's definitely a little bit above average, but I don't really know if it's anything that's, again, really going to make a big difference. But, again, it's definitely playable for sure. Blitzing, I'll give it 86. While I think he contains better because of the fact that I think he just, again, it's more into it, ingrained in him. He still blitzes really well. I think it's, again, it's a little bit limited, though, because you need to be a little bit crazy to be an elite blitzer in the NFL. There's gonna be, if you're an elite blitzer, there's times where you can completely blow an assignment. It's going to happen. I mean, maybe not the best of the best, but you get the point. More often than that, that's going to happen at times. So the fact that it doesn't happen with him, I think just kind of limits what he's going to really do with that. Again, kind of hurts in terms of the actual like rate at which he gets pressure. With that said, though, his block shedding, or not his block shedding, what the hell am I talking about? His strength is very solid. Again, like I said, he gets the initial impact, and even if you're a big offensive lineman, it is hard to knock him down. I'm telling you that right now. It's hard to move him. He is basically, again, a second level of a defensive lineman in terms of what you're going to have to do with him, again, with the momentum he's coming with. Block shedding is very solid. It's not something that I think will kind of separate him as a player, though. I do like his athleticism a lot, though. That's something I will say with him. He is the guy that I think that doesn't really have the versatility in coverage to really, again, warrant this sort of grade, but again, the measurables are there, and he does play really, really well with this. That's what I'll say that. What was that? Anyways, yeah, his potential is a 69, because honestly, guys, I don't really see this guy getting a ton better. But still, KJ Wright's my comparison. KJ Wright was a very similar guy, very competent in it, again, with his tackling. So I said 76.6. He's a very solid prospect. It's just the fact that I don't really know if he's going to get a ton better than this.
Driving the length of the field, 10 and 12 plays.
Preston Rex, just too much traffic and too much speed on the edge.
At the halfway point, and we are on to the most famous linebacker on this list. That is Jacob Rodriguez out of Texas Tech. He was the best linebacker in terms of production last year in the country. Led the best defense in the country at Texas Tech, and he had an absolutely monster season. Honestly, I'd argue 2024 was more productive in a couple ways, but again, obviously last year he still had a monster season, had 4 picks, showed his usage and coverage that, again, kind of was questioned in 2024. He's a guy that obviously has had a very, again, crazy journey here at Virginia. Wasn't he like a quarterback or something ridiculous like that? Moved to defense. Took 2 years definitely to adjust to linebacker. And then 2024 was, again, their big-time guy. And then last year, he was an All-American. One of the better, he was the most prestigious linebacker in the country. He simply put has the pedigree of a guy you see going in the first round. With that said, is he really that guy? We'll look at that now. Again, on one of the best defenses in the country, he showed what a disciplined defense looks like. He is a elite tackler, I think, in a lot of ways. He doesn't miss tackles. He's very, very good at either, again, really just throwing the guy down or just simply getting the guy stopped. I think that's all, again, what gets overlooked with tackling is the fact that, yeah, it's technically like 90% of it, but again, if you can really just get the guy down in the first place is also, again, a big part of it, too. IQ is a 92. I don't really know if it's quite as good as Deontae Lawson because there are some things with him that I just don't see, again, him really ever getting to him with Deontae. But at the same time, guys, his IQ it's really freaking good. We look at his coverage. That's really the big thing lacking here. We'll get to this in a little bit. But he is somewhat consistent in man coverage. He doesn't really get asked to do it a lot, but if he goes against tight end, he can at least do that a little bit. But here's what we're talking about the versatility. He's a guy that you have to, as a defense coordinator, every game, consciously think about, if I put him in this situation, is our defense being put in a bad spot? And for a lot of teams, it's hard to deal with that. But for him, it is a major limiting factor in his game. You can't put him in the right spot. It will not only take himself out of the game, but it will put other guys in conflict that will really hurt your defense's chance to get consistent success on every play. On top of that, he's very consistent in zone coverage, and this is, I think, is where he's a little bit better because of the fact that he is a very aware player, and his instincts, while not elite, are still in a place where he is able to drop back and know what's going on behind him, which I think a lot of these other guys don't really have. Also, you put him in curl flat great positioning for him because he did miss a play on that this entire last season. Versatility, obviously not the most versatile. He's just not very fast, but it works out pretty well. I told you guys, instincts, not great. Still good, still pretty damn good, though. I think this, again, will definitely be a playable trade of his. Eye discipline, yeah, it's not that great. When you have a great D-line, when you have Lee Hunter, David Bailey on that D-line, it's not really something you have to really worry about. But I will say, when I evaluate it, it's definitely something you can improve on. He fits the run really well. Again, their alignments last year were nearly flawless because of the fact that he's just that guy. Again, in terms of getting himself in the right spot. Yeah, he'll keep you guys down on run defense there. Containing, he doesn't do it a lot, but you can definitely move around him. Playmaking, what am I supposed to say, guys? He, again, probably made the most plays out of anybody in the country last year, linebacker. It doesn't take a freaking genius to know that. He's definitely a slow guy. I didn't try to overplay it, though, so I'm going to say 62, or make it overblown. Honestly, guys, these next 4 traits are just kind of bleh. His strength is definitely solid. I don't really see him as, again, he's kind of an average box shatter. He doesn't actually have to do it, I think, on the volume that some people think he has to. He blitzes pretty efficiently, but nothing crazy. It's not, again, something you want to see him doing the entire game. He's, again, really an average athlete. And I think his potential will give an 84. He's going to be a solid linebacker in football. It's just of how much of that is going to be predicated on what the defensive coordinator is able to plan for him, which I think is definitely a big trait of his. Talking point of his. Still, 75.2 overall grade. He's a solid guy. Logan Wilson and Mike Harrison, they're very similar in their coverage profiles.
He lets it go. Haynes King being chased. Haynes King desperate to the end.
Now we're on to the, I guess, most highly regarded, or I don't even know. He's another Georgia linebacker, guys, that being C.J. Allen. He is probably my favorite guy since Nakobe Dean coming out of the draft at Georgia, honestly, on the defensive side of the ball in a lot of ways, because of the fact that he just carves up your blocking scheme. There's no other way to put it. He finds his way through, he gets to the running back, and he stops him for a 3 or 4 yard gain, and even then, if you still block him, his arm tackling it's really freaking good. And that's something I noticed really last year. I will say in 2024, despite him having, honestly, a better year in coverage, it wasn't really as consistent as a run defender. That's really the big thing you want to see with him. And we saw it tremendously last year. He made a ton of plays every game. And even in coverage, if he wasn't exactly the most engaged, he was still in a position to really put his team in a solid spot. And again, for a lot of these other guys, it's hard to see that. He's, again, he was a true freshman coming out. Again, he's been better and better every year. But for CJ, he's, again, another really freaking good tackler. Technically, he's not, again, exactly elite. There are some things that definitely fall behind with him, but, again, he's a really freaking good tackler. His IQ, 76. Yeah, he's not the greatest here. I think he still has a lot more to learn, but his overall, again, base at the moment is just fine. Man coverage, he's a little inconsistent. Again, really his overall coverage makeup isn't really a big part of his game, but I think it's still definitely playable. There were just some situations where he really didn't make. Yeah, but like I said, his overall coverage makeup isn't really a part of his game that's going to be too stressed. Again, like I said, he's still a playable guy in coverage, obviously. But I don't really see him as a guy that's going to really be a big part of his game. Again, as long as his numbers are, like, honestly average or a little bit below average, honestly, in the league, guys, I don't really see this as a big issue. It's really just the fact that there were some situations where, again, he kind of just was useless in coverage. Not, again, like he was getting just absolutely destroyed, but, like, it's like, it's third down. Like, you could definitely put a better guy out there, but it doesn't really matter, considering he gives you all these other things. His instincts are really good. I think his overall trust in what he's doing is more of what the coach has, or not the coach, but what the scheme is kind of entails, rather than him just basically making the right play every time. That's what I'll say there. With that said, though, his eye discipline is the best. I'm sorry, but other than Levante David, this is the best tape of a linebacker in terms of eye discipline that I've seen. He knows what's happening. All right, I see a guy pulling. I'm not going to, again, if the run's really going there, it doesn't matter. He just gets his way through to the play. I don't really know another way to put it. He slices and dices his way to the freaking running back. It's insane. I mean, it's very rare to see that. And it's like, you don't even contact him because he's just taking the exact precise route. And if you're supposed to block him, he's going to get around you. It's hard to find guys that are like this, guys. Positioning is also special. He's never in the wrong spot. Also, he contains, oh my god, guys. This is probably my favorite trait about him. It's not as, I guess, pronounced as his eye discipline, but yeah, guys. In the league, if you want to just shut down any sort of shenanigans, he's the guy to do it. Yeah, he's just gonna fly around. His playmaking is also really freaking good. He just, again, it's a little bit more in the volume, I think, with that. I think kind of hurts him a little bit, but this definitely is going to project well in the league. He's got good speed. I wouldn't say it's, like, really good, but I guess it is. But, you know, he's definitely above average in terms of that. He blitzes. He's a freaking blur. I think he could definitely take a little bit better routes. Maybe, again, a move in here would definitely help in terms of, again, his arsenal. But still, he's a blur. Like, woof. Just look out if he's blitzing. Strength 81. Definitely above average. I think it's more just natural, his, natural physical capabilities more than anything. I don't really see this as, again, like, improving, but who knows. His block shooting is definitely not great, but he never has to, so who really cares? His athleticism is definitely really good. Again, like I said, it's nothing that stands out a ton, but who cares? Potential gave a 91. This is a guy I see being one of the better run defending linebackers for at least the nenext 5 years. He's just that good. Eric Henderson, by comparison, who at his peak was that guy. I still think that C.J. Allen is I don't see much better, but definitely a notch up in terms of his eye discipline. Again, it's just crazy. 83.9 though. He's an absolute beast. Now let's get to a guy that again a lot of people are talking about.
Goal from the 1. Can Illinois get in? Altmaier pulls it out. Spins.
Steadily moving along here. Oh yeah, we're on to him. Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State, who might as well have just graduated last year. Some people had him in the 2024 NFL draft, but that did not in fact happen, and now he is one of the best linebacker prospects we have seen in a minute, as he is coming out of Ohio State after his senior season, I guess technically, as he put up an 82 tackle season, threw up an interception, 6.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. He was already a premier defensive prospect in this year's draft, but after, we'll just say, a historic combine, his draft stock has progressively shot up. I wouldn't say it maybe is to the extent that we saw with Trayvon Walker. Again, you look at that 2022 NFL draft class, it was a very weak draft class in terms of premier talent. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson was there. And if we had to do a redo, he would be a Jacksonville Jaguar, which I don't know, is that good or bad? I mean, they basically have had very similar. I'm joking. But yeah, Sonny Styles, production-wise, 2024 was better. I still think this past season, he looked like he shouldn't have freaking been. He should have been in the NFL last year, guys. I'm sorry. He should have been. He was too good. He was, like, it was very obvious. There are seasons where there are guys in college football that I'm saying, it's not because they're old or anything. It's just because they're too good. They shouldn't be here. And I mean, again, it wasn't a huge thing with him. But obviously him and, again, Caleb Downs less of. But still, Sonny Styles was the guy I thought last year could have been in the NFL, honestly. But anyways, he is an absolute, like, just freak. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He is probably the best tackler in this year's draft out of any other player. I'm not even going to really try to debate that. There might be a safety or two if we get down the board that has, again, a very unique trait with this. But, he has a very clean and smooth technique where he basically just, he wraps the guy up. I don't even say bear hugs him, but it's something of that extent. It's just an absolute umbrella. You're just not going to break out of that tackle, and it's very, very rare he misses tackles. I think he had like a 5.5 missed tackle rate, something ridiculous like that. Like, what the hell? His IQ, I honestly don't think is that great, but it's still above average because he makes plays that you at least need to have some sort of knowledge in your defense that goes beyond what you're expected to use to, you know, be a viable player on the field. In coverage, it's not as hasn't really translated as well as I think you might have thought it will, like, as in theory. In man coverage, he's just a guy that kind of just floats, to be honest with you guys. Honestly stays on his guy, but there's real no, like, I would say lockdown, but, like, matchmaking sort of element to what you've seen with him. It's kind of like he hasn't gotten there. With that said, though, he is basically a hybrid safety in a lot of ways, and for that reason, he can go on a slot receiver and not really have a ton of trouble with it. I'm not going to say he's anything like Fred Warner, but that is definitely a trait of his that really is something that gets overlooked. On top of that, in zone coverage, he's a lot more consistent. I still don't think he was really operating at a level that I consider to be, I don't know, top 3 or 4 at the position in the country last year as a zone linebacker, but still, he played at a very high level here. On tape, it was a lot of good things of him being able to gain his traction and progressively move up, which I think for him is a huge factor in why I gave him a 90, but outside of that, guys, he's, again, an absolute chef's piece. Again, this is what I'll say. You can put him anywhere in zone, and you'll probably be okay with it. He can literally be put in a one-high situation, and I might not even care, to be honest with you guys. That's how, you put him wherever the hell you want. Instincts. This is the one thing about Sonny Styles that I think is very hard to talk about, because while his physical traits are beyond what really any other linebacker we've seen in a while have had, his instincts have never really been truly great. He's always been a reactive player, and it's not really in a way that you'd think would be of an elite guy coming out of the draft. This is the one thing I think that I won't say is a concern, but definitely something that could limit in terms of what his ceiling could end up being. Because at some point you are going to have to be able to anticipate at a level, in terms of we're talking like a innate ability, that is going to be able to separate you from these other elite athletes that I don't think he will ever have. He can definitely get better, but I don't know if there's ever going to be something for him that's going to really be looked upon as a strength. But still, it's not a weakness per se. Again, he still anticipates somewhat well. His eye discipline is fitting the run have never really been exactly big stressing points with him, and I don't really think they ever will be. And I don't think, honestly, if he just was the most undisciplined player in the world, I still wouldn't even care because he's finding ways to be an effective player. He contains, obviously, an elite level. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that. Playmaking, I'll give an 82. He actually doesn't make his money plays as you think he will, but again, it's going to happen. His speed is obviously 100. He's the fastest linebacker I've seen in a little bit. I don't know if he's the fastest linebacker I've ever seen, but he's somewhat close to that. I give him 83 for blitzing. He blitzes really well. This is more, if there's anything I'd say, his sort of pass rush arsenal isn't really there, so that kind of hurts him here. That's probably the one thing I'll say. But he is still if there's anything refined about his game, it is this in terms of his overall process. His strength, I gave an 84. He's a naturally strong dude. Nothing insane, though. He doesn't shut off blocks too great, but I don't really care. And obviously, he's the best athlete we've ever seen at linebacker. I think that's probably the most, I won't say most extreme, but that's probably the best thing I can say about him. He is a once in a generation athlete at this position. Again, measurably and on tape. Again, I wouldn't say it is extreme on tape, but it's pretty damn close, guys. You're not going to find guys like this very often. Potential, I gave him a 95. I didn't give it, why did I put it there? I didn't give it 100 because, like, let's be honest, but still, if his instincts were that good, I think maybe he'd be there. But yeah, he's got everything you want in terms of athleticism and basically everything else. I gave him an 87.1 though. Isaiah Simmons is my comparison because they're both positionless, and I don't think that he'll be the same guy because of the fact that you can just throw him at standard linebacker and say do something, and he'll be able to do that. Where Isaiah Simmons is a little bit like he needed to know what the hell he was doing, and that never really happened. So yeah, but for Sonny Styles, I couldn't really get him up to the 90s just because of some other things, but yeah, he's a pretty damn good player.
Jackson in the backfield alongside Johnson. In to help pass protect. Johnson scrambling. Throws across his body. And it's intercepted.
Moving over to Lander Barton, the Utah linebacker. He has been a very reliable player every single year at Utah. He has played every single one of years of his career. Obviously, 2023 was the injury. Wasn't quite the same in 2024. Came back in 2025, had a much more consistent season. He's never really been a guy you've looked at to be a high-volume tackler because of the fact that he plays a lot of Sam. But at the same time, his ability to consistently get off blocks and kind of influence what the running back is able to do is something that I think a lot of people just don't really seem to know about him. On top of the fact that he's obviously a very good, solid cover linebacker. Lander Barton, for me, is a very reliable player, and he has the build to be a guy, just really have staying power. On top of that, though, for Lander, he's never really been a fantastic tackler. Honestly, I think this might be a flaw in his game if there was a true one. I'll go with that in a little bit. But, yeah, his tackling is not the greatest. Football IQ, I gave him an 84. It's more of him relying on his kind of just his athleticism more than anything. And kind of other things. It's not exactly like he has, again, a great knowledge of what's going on. There are times where you would like him to be a little bit more intuitive. Again, if we look at his kind of progression in certain run concepts, but overall, it's not that. Again, he obviously knows what's his stuff. On top of that, we look at his man coverage. It's kind of a hard thing to look at because of the fact that he's a very linear player. His man coverage consistency, I gave an 83 because of the fact that he just simply didn't get beat very often. But at the same time, it is hard to see this guy put against a slot receiver. I put this down my notes like 4 different times, but it's just not going to really work out, to be honest with him there. That's why I really limited him here. On top of the fact that against faster tight ends, it could be a little bit of an issue too, just because of the fact that his reaction isn't really, again, works too well with those guys. But I will say he is elite, I wouldn't say elite, borderline elite guy at linebacker in terms of zone coverage, and this is part of the reason I love him, because there's some things we'll get into that are just you can't teach, but this is one of the things that I think in terms of we're talking about a tangible ability of his, it is the fact that he is a plus guy in zone. He was their best zone defender last season. He was their best zone defender even when he got injured in 2023. He is a really big-time zone guy, and you can kind of build your defense around that in a lot of ways. That's what I'll say on him. On top of that, this is definitely the biggest reason that I really love him, and I think that you'll see it in the league. He has a different level of natural instincts that it's just hard to find guys like this, and he's the lone guy in this year's draft that I think I can like definitively say this with. There's other guys that I think I'd give him like an 83 or 84, but no one's as instinctive as he is in this year's draft. There's a stark difference between him and even a guy like, I don't know, Kayshaun Elliott, guys like that. Like, it's hard to find guys like this, and he is the guy in this year's class. Again, I'd say once every 2 or 3 years you find a guy like this, and this is the year you find it. Discipline I think is okay. He kind of just, like I said, find his way through things. Not getting to the level of CJ Allen, but still. His positioning has always been average. Again, he doesn't really adjust it too much. There are times, though, that he is completely out of position, still finds a way to make a play. He contains not really very often. When he has, it's been a little bit hit or miss. He makes a lot of plays just off the fact that he just knows what's going to happen. But at the same time, I think this is a little bit more of a kind of soft grade because that can go way up. Speed, I gave a 90. He's going to play fast. He's going to make a lot of plays. His blitzing, honestly, is right on line with CJ Allen. I don't know if he's as explosive as CJ Allen is coming off the I wouldn't even say off the edge, just coming up the field. But he is absolutely has a head start. I give his strength a 42. He's not a strong player. He's not going to play strong in the league. If you get him into a small area, he will get abused. There are certain situations you don't want him on the field. But even though it's bad, it's definitely something that can be helped out. Blackstone, I gave a 55. He has poor technique, but also, like I said, something that can be taught. I don't want to make this like a huge thing here. These are going to get better. But there are issues right now. Athleticism gave an 82. Really not an elite athlete, but still, again, really good. Potential gave a 74. You might think, what the hell am I doing? This is a guy I don't really see filling out. Again, I don't want to say this. While I love him as a prospect, I don't think he'll ever get to his potential in the NFL, like his full potential. So the reason I give it 74 is I think there's a limit to what you're going to see with him because he's a very hard guy to find. And again, there's something to say about the fact that, again, we're talking about fit, like a fit. If a player, even though if they're, again, like technically high potential is like an 85. I can't give that to them if I think that it's a very hard thing for a team to get him to. For that reason, I gave him a 74. Stone has it to a 77.7. This guy's going to be a beast in the league. I understand Troy Anderson's comparison. I don't really love it, but physically, it's pretty damn close, so I just rolled with that.
3rd and 7 for General Booty. The former Oklahoma quarterback nailed, dropped.
Now on to a highly regarded linebacker in this year's class. That is Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas. He was, I wouldn't say the best linebacker coming out of college, coming into this year, Jesus, but he was pretty damn close. He had a huge 2024 season where he was probably the best run defender in the country. He provided elite, and I mean elite, blitzing capabilities. Last year definitely took a step back in an injury-riddled season where realistically he was about as bad in coverage as you probably could have imagined for him. At the same time, though, he was still a very good run defender. Not maybe to the same extent as you might have expected, but this guy is a guy they put in a lot of situations where he's at the line of scrimmage and then bounces off. And last year it really wasn't as much as you might have thought, which I think hurt him a lot. But still, last year on a defense that really didn't reach their expectations, he still had a pretty solid year. Again, he was well on his way to being a first-round pick last year, though. He had a big-time 2024, guys. But still, there's a lot of the same traits that, I mean, it really wasn't, again, like any sort of doubts. It was just the fact that he had definitely a down junior season going into this year's draft. But with that said, for Anthony, his tackling has always been a solid part of his game. It's been a consistency. It's just been the fact that he might not ever be a guy you can, like, completely rely on because he will in the open field and occasionally miss a tackle. There were definitely some instances against some pretty good running backs where that happened. His IQ I gave an 81. He's definitely somewhat in a situation, especially in zone coverage looks, where he's able to kind of anticipate pre-snap what's going to be happening with his other players on his team, especially the safeties. There's a very good relationship with those guys. I think the fact that what the hell is the guy's name? I'm not going to remember it, but the strong safety they had in 2024. They had a great combination together because of the fact that Anthony understood the looks they were going to get in terms of the levels concepts from, I think it was in the Georgia game. In that game, I remember him and the safety, they did a great job of passing things off, and that just speaks to his IQ. I think that was definitely a highlight of this trait for him, but still, very good example there. In coverage, he is not a guy you want to put in man coverage very often, and even then, you can definitely, like, he'll check himself off of that. He's not a bad guy in man, it's just the fact that he's not a guy that will really succeed in this because of the fact that his, honestly, his hip fluidity, if I'm being honest with you guys, just really isn't there. In zone, he's a lot better because of the fact that he knows where to drop to, and his, I'd really say, this is hard to describe. It's kind of just his feel. He like kind of like knows where to be. That's the best way to put it. I want to be more specific, but I can't with that. I said Lander Barton's really the guy with the best instincts. I lied. I don't think Anthony Hill. This is tough to say. I'm gonna go to Lander Barton and put this up. This is gonna be 105. It's not gonna change the actual grade, but that should be better. Anthony Hill has really good instincts, guys. I'm not gonna even lie to y'all. I just don't think this is something like where it's like a true like standout, but. Yeah, he makes a lot of good plays. He trusts himself. He's a very natural-based player, which I just think there's something to that for him. Even though I don't think there's a difference between him and Leonard Run. I got to keep that true to in the tape there. But anyways, his eye discipline I don't really care about. It's not great. He doesn't fit the run wall at all. That's gonna have to get better. Containing 75, playmaking 72. He's decently fast. He blitzes really well. Again, the production guys. Like what else am I gonna say? You could argue the playmaking should be higher, but honestly, guys, last year, even though we made a lot of plays, it was a big step back from 2025. I gotta be honest with y'all. And I don't think it's gonna go up, but I think it was an anomaly. But still, you might ask why 72 because he misses a lot of plays. He gets a lot of chances to make plays. He's got that should make a lot of plays, but he doesn't. Sometimes it's kind of a paradox. Strength 79. He's a pretty strong dude. He can again get his way in the red zone and stuff. Block shedding I give a 61 because he has an absolutely just gross move. Not in a good way. I don't know what it is. He basically tries to chop down on the guy, stack, and then go. It just doesn't work. Athleticism getting 83. He's a really good athlete, and I think potential is a 71. Honestly, guys, I see him as a number 2 linebacker, and even then, I don't really see him being a really, really good player. Honestly, you could definitely move that up, but I think there's definitely a role for him in the league that doesn't really entail him being a true vocal point of the defense. Still, Ivan Pace Jr. is my comparison. I really like that one because Ivan Pace is a really solid player. 76.9 overgrade for Anthony Hill. Let's get to our last guy before we see what these overall rankings look like. And if you remember all the way in the beginning when I talked about how, again, there's only really 9 guys in this year's class that I see as true starting linebackers. Well, Wade, bro, the clock struck midnight. I mean, I didn't want to put him last. It was kind of random that this happened, but yeah, Wade is not the strongest prospect in this year's draft. He still made my top 10, though, because he's an absolute, like, savant. But he has major physical limitations we'll get to in a little bit. But overall, guys, his 2 years as a starter for Clemson were very boring, to be honest with y'all. He really didn't make a ton of mistakes throughout the season. He's a very reliable guy. If we're talking about a guy you need to put in as a backup and you need him to start a game, he's not going to exactly play bad, but there's definitely a lot of schematical changes you're going to need to make that are going to really challenge your defense, put a lot of stress more, definitely on the cornerbacks, because of the fact that over the middle of the field, he is not a guy you can really be responsible for because of the fact that he just doesn't have the capabilities to shut down passing lanes at a timely rate, or not timely rate, that's a bad word. He's not timely with that. But anyway, back to this here. We look at Wade, last guy we're looking at this. He's a very fundamentally sound player. That's probably, again, the real thing you look at with him because he's a really good tackler. Probably, honestly, the best guy we've, outside of, obviously, Sonny Styles. He just doesn't miss tackles, and his technique is very, very refined. It's on the basis of him being able to, again, anchor his feet, get his arms into positions where he can, I don't want to say restrict the movement, but you know what I mean with that. He doesn't really mess that up very often. His IQ is also very high. I don't want to say he's because he's white, but I mean, like, it kind of is. I'm not going to lie. His coverage is abysmal. He can't cover a guy in man. I'm not even going to lie to y'all. In zone, he's very consistent in his role, which is really just zone flat. But he definitely has a very, very limited package. I don't even know why I gave him a 66. Oh, I guess he can play over the middle somewhat, but it's not very well. His instincts are average. This is probably the big limiter with him. For a guy that isn't exactly athletically gifted or anything like that, it's hard for him to, you know, be looked at as anything more than that. At the same time, though, his eye discipline is definitely solid. I like the way he fits the run. He's very consistent with that, even if he's not put into exactly dangerous situation to blow up a play. Still a lot more safe than these other guys, or some other guys. Containing doesn't do it a lot, but still, from the tape I saw, it wasn't, again, anything bad. 67 playmaking. He's a guy that's going to struggle to make plays in the league. It's just going to happen. Then also speed, I gave it 70. It's definitely below average. Not to the extent where it'll really hurt him, but it's below average. Blitzing gave an 80. He's a solid blitzer. He'll get pressure more often than not. Strength gave it 55. He will get moved. There were definitely some plays where he got washed out of the play. It was kind of hard to see, but it was like, imagine like it's like there's like the tide. He'd be the guy riding the tide. Block shedding gave it 61. His technique isn't exactly bad. It's just that he doesn't really have a separating move, and he doesn't exactly take on blocks great, which is something we're talking about again. A fundamental skill there. He can definitely get better at. I don't know about a breakaway move though. That's definitely something he's gonna have to figure out. Athleticism gave 74. He's actually not as bad as an athlete as you might have thought. He does have something to his lateral capability. It's just I don't really see, especially with the measurables and stuff, that really can stand out that much. But again, that's kind of, I guess, helping him there. I give him 75 potential. He could be decent. I do like his floor a lot more than some of these other guys, and I think there is something to that in terms of being a starter. But at the same time, he's a hard guy to see being a really decent player, to be honest with you guys. Miles Burris, in my comparison, Miles didn't really play a ton in the league, but he did start again early in his career for a reason. Then obviously the concussions and stuff piled up really fairly quickly. But Miles was definitely a guy that I looked at as a a guy that came in and made plays. So I mean, Wade, maybe he can be that, but again, just really the physical makeup with those two. That's all I have here. Let's get to those overall rankings. Alright guys, now moving to the overall rankings. Again, trying to make this pretty swift here, but we'll start with Kayshaun Elliott, who we started off with at Arizona State. He came out with a 74.4 overall grade. Definitely a guy that's going to be making plays in the NFL. It's just off of the fact that there's definitely some limitations to his overall ceiling in that regard. Next up we had Xavian Sorey, high energy player. Who, again, very high pedigree, tested a lot in the SEC. Definitely think a limiter of his film was the fact that I don't think he ever got a really a true chance to dominate, but you definitely saw superiority in certain games. Just really didn't see that on a consistent basis. Deontae Lawson, 75.3, kind of a savant out of all these guys. He definitely has the highest understanding of systems and kind of, he's just kind of a student of the game, and I think that's something that a lot of people miss with these guys. So the fact that he does have that in his arsenal, I think, is very important. Now we're on to Jake Golday. Or Golday, not Golday. What am I talking about? 76.6. He's a physical dude, bros. Definitely want to get hit by him. He very, very often has a sense of urgency getting to his spots and then kind of moving off of them, again, to where he sees fit. But at the same time, there are some things you look at in terms of his tackling and some other techniques that could definitely use some work. Jacob Rodriguez, 75.2. Obviously, most again, highly regarded in a lot of ways for some people. Again, he was the All-American. He made a crap ton of plays last year. He's definitely a hell of a dude. It's just if that really translates to the NFL. CJ Allen, 83.9. Best run defender in this year's class, but not even close. He's just that dude. Sonny Styles, probably the best athlete in the entire draft class, especially for the position, obviously. He's just, you don't find guys at this position like this. Same time, though, who really knows what he's going to play? Luther Barton, I already talked about it, or not Lander Barton, Jesus, not Luther. Lander Barton, he has the best instincts of linebacker I have seen in the past at least 2 drafts. He's just got that in him. At the same time, though, there are some peripheral things with him, maybe in coverage that he could, I guess, where he could definitely try to up his value in the next couple weeks. Who knows? Anthony Hill Jr. 76.9 after a massive sophomore season. Last year was a little bit of a step back. Playmaking doesn't really look to be as much of a part of his game, but still, that will be his calling card in the NFL. It'll be if he can be a little bit more consistent in some other areas to kind of not have that be, again, the really sole value for him. On the new Woodaz, who I didn't put a grade in for, but, you'll see in a second. And then you look at the overall grades. Wade, I guess it was a 72.4 overall. It's okay there, bro. But anyways, he was my number 10. We knew that. And then here's my top, my top 9 linebackers, or top 10, I guess. I might be surprised that Jacob Rodriguez is all the way back at 7, but as you guys can see, I run a very tight ship with these guys. Obviously, Sonny Styles, I think he's the highest guy. I think the grade is so far, but again, 3rd position here, not too surprising there. CJ Allen, 83.9, really high there. Lander Barton is my number 3 linebacker, 77.7. Going to keep talking about it. His instincts are the reason for that. That's what linebackers need to have to be successful. Anthony Hill Jr., 76.9, obviously, and then Jake Golday, 76.6, and obviously keep going down. But with that, that's all I have for you guys here for the 2026 NFL Draft linebacker prospect rankings here. I don't know why it's 2025 draft. I'll fix that. But anyways, Why did it say B? What the hell? But anyways, yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see y'all for the, again, why is there B? I'll see y'all for the safeties, hopefully either tomorrow or on Friday, but again, opening day is going on. It's a good time of year, y'all. But yeah, enjoy your March Madness, because again, that is still technically going on.
And that kick is blocked, and now you got Kuechly, and Luke Kuechly down the sideline with a little bit of blocking. Luke Kuechly, if he stays in bounds, could go all the way. And once again, the Saints give up a block kick and a touchdown.
92 Vernon Butler right there is going to end up getting this hand on this football.